June 23, 1942, late afternoon. Low cloud over the Bristol Channel, the light a flat, metallic gray that swallows the horizon. Oberleutnant Armin Faber holds his Focke Wulf Fw A3 out of a diving turn, the G-forces pressing him into the seat as the sea flashes beneath his wings. The dogfight that started over southern England has dissolved into chaos. Spitfires scattered, radio chatter broken, the sky a maze of contrails and blind spots. Faber, 21 years old and already a decorated Luftwaffe pilot with victories to his name, is certain of two things. He has turned once, and France should now be directly ahead. You can almost feel the stiffness in his gloved hands as he steadies the stick, eyes flicking between the blurred coastline, ahead and the instruments dancing on his panel. The Fw 190 hums with brutal confidence, a wide-stance fighter with a powerful BMW 801 radial engine, 8 tons of German engineering resting on the belief that its pilot knows where he is. Below, a strip of land appears through the haze. Airfield, runway perimeter track. To Faber's tired mind, it matches the mental picture of a Luftwaffe base on the French coast. He dips his wing in a friendly waggle, a casual salute to what he thinks are comrades waiting below. On the ground at RAF Pembrey in South Wales, Sergeant Jeffries, the duty pilot, watches the silhouette on approach and feels his stomach knot. That isn't a Spitfire. The nose is too blunt, the wings too broad, the stance too aggressive. It's the shape every RAF pilot has been describing in nervous mess hall conversations for months. The Focke Wulf 190, the Luftwaffe's new killer. There is no scramble, no flak, no frantic rush to man defenses. Pembrey is a gunnery school, not a frontline fighter station. Real weapons are scarce and no one has rehearsed what to do when the enemy comes in with his wheels down instead of guns hot. Men simply stand and stare as the German fighter lines up on their runway, as if reality has slipped a gear. As the Fw 190 slows to a crawl, Jeffries runs in, boots splashing through puddles, and swings himself up onto the wing. The canopy crack is the only sound between them. He levels the flare gun at Faber's face, and in that frozen instant, the German realizes he has not come home to France at all. The runway, the signs, the uniforms, none of it is Luftwaffe. Faber's hands rise from the controls in a slow, stunned surrender. The cockpit smells of fuel, sweat, and hot metal cooling in foreign air. He has just delivered the Reich's most feared fighter, completely intact, into British hands without a single bullet fired. It will be hours before the full weight of that error reaches London, days before Berlin hears the truth, and months before anyone understands how much this one landing will change the air war. The moment the wheels stop turning, the airfield seems to hold its breath. Faber sits motionless in the cockpit, still half convinced this must be a forward Luftwaffe strip. Some unfamiliar detachment, some administrative mix-up that will be cleared with a few shouted words of German. Then he catches sight of the closest aircraft parked off the dispersal. Elliptical wings, narrow undercarriage, the unmistakable lines of a supermarine Spitfire wearing bold RAF roundels. His stomach drops. This is not France. On the ground, the British airmen are stunned into a kind of practical disbelief. For months, pilots returning from combat patrols have been talking about a new German fighter that seems to do everything better. Faster at low altitude, savage in a roll, able to break away in a dive and simply vanish. Now that specter is here, its engine ticking as it cools on Welsh soil, guarded by a sergeant with a flare, pistol and a handful of ground crew in oil-stained overalls. No one has trained for, what if the enemy delivers the mystery aircraft to your front door? Yet that is exactly what has happened. Faber opens the canopy with deliberate, almost ceremonial slowness. Cold, damp air rushes into the cockpit, carrying the smell of grass and coal smoke instead of the familiar tang of German bases on the Channel coast. He looks down at the faces staring back at him. English uniforms, English expressions, English silence. For a second he considers bolting, yanking the throttle forward, trying to make a desperate takeoff, but the flare pistol aimed squarely at his chest and the ring of men closing in tell him the war, for him, is suddenly over. He raises his hands again, higher this time, and climbs out onto the wing. The Fw 190 beneath his boots is no longer just his machine. It has become an object, a prize, something these strangers are circling with a mixture of awe and fear. You can almost feel the shift in ownership, as British hands reach up not to strike him, but to steady the aircraft's wingtip, to guide it, to make space around it. The butcher bird, as German pilots have begun to nickname it, is now a captured animal in someone else's cage. Far above this small Welsh field, the broader war has no idea that a pivot point has just been reached. Over the Channel and occupied France, German pilots are still flying confident sweeps, counting on their FW-190s to run circles around the Spitfire Mk V in speed, climb, and firepower at low altitude. Allied planners are still discussing desperate ideas. Commando raids to snatch a German fighter from a French airfield. Suicidal operations that might never work. Now all of that risk has been rendered unnecessary by one man's navigational error. As night begins to creep in over Pembrey, guards take up positions around the captured FW-190, their silhouettes black against the fading sky. The aircraft sits quietly, its once fearsome presence reduced to a dark shape under the growing drizzle.